my fucking god. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. Alright. I am trying to remain calm and sane about this, and it has not been working for very long. Alright. So, I have actually been going around, I don't even know really how to start this. This is just how frustrating it is to everything and everybody here. So, I can't remember how all it really started. I remember looking at this one video while I was on the YouTube, just going through the feed and whatnot, and then I come across this one video that kind of looks interesting. And even though the title looks interesting, I can tell right away it's the whole damn clickbaity bullshit that it's indicative of all the red flags that says I'm gonna hate this, it's gonna be something stupid. Lo and behold, it was. And it's all right. So that kind of led one thing to another. I started looking through the rest of these videos, and I'm just looking through this, and I'm just thinking to myself, what the goddamn fucking hell is this bullshit? These people are fucking lunatics. Now, like I said, I can't remember how all it started. But where the issue lies now, here, and today. I passed on to a channel that apparently is calling itself Big Think. And the one thing it does is there's the one particular video in particular question. The presenter is known as Van Jones, and the title itself is Exposing Liberal Hypocrisy and Conservative Closed-Mindedness. Van Jones, Big Think. And my inherent problem with this is that it starts off well. It always starts off well. I think the Freedom Tombs described it best when the Freedom Tombs literally addressed the whole Jordan Peterson is Red Skull, the new Nazi and whatnot. And he puts in there kind of as a joke that last lecture. You think you know yourself, but you don't. You're a chimpanzee full of snakes. And I realized that was just Seamus being quirky and weird. But at the same time, it kind of had that profound impact. It's like wisdom, you didn't expect it in that moment. Do we really know ourselves, or are we just chimpanzees full of snakes? Been part of Pinoid Circle for a little bit there. Shout out for Pinoid News and whatnot, and he got really he got really complainy last time I posted a video that wasn't even my channel. He's like, bro, can't get a shout out or thing? Okay, there's your shout out, Tom. You can relax. Even though I only got like one subscriber and not so many other views. So, getting back into this. It starts off well, and Van Jones addresses where both sides fail to see each other, and I'm kind of nodding, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can understand this. Yeah, I've been guilty of being a little closed-minded of the other side and whatnot. He starts addressing liberals and their problems as far as that's concerned. I'm kind of nodding along. I'm like, yes, thank you. Somebody gets it. And then he turns around and addresses the conservative side of the thing. Now, I know you want to... The irony of this is not lost on me. That I'm being closed-minded and hypocritical to what he's saying. But part of it has to do with the fact is that it sounds like he's pleading to me over stuff he doesn't really understand, and just how fucking stupid it is. And I've identified the problem. See, the inherent problem and the discommunication on why the left and the right, the liberals and the conservatives, don't necessarily get along has less to do with the values we place in our individual ideas. Part of it, yes, but that's not where the disconnect is happening. Where the disconnect is happening is how we think about things. I tend to lean more towards the conservative sides of things, and this goes back to the little chimpanzee full of snakes things. Part of being in that circle is that I have had somebody, try to identify what I am and whatnot. And I said, I'm a nationalist. And he said, well, thank you for admitting that, and now I know how to treat you like, I just don't talk to you and keep my hands away from you anymore. And after I said that, I had to sit there for about 5 minutes and think to myself, am I really a nationalist? I don't feel like one. And the more I thought about it, the less true it seemed. And this is where it kind of gets into the disassociation. Yes, I tend to lean more toward the conservative side of things, or at least in that general camp, mainly because I have been attacked, slandered, and all sorts of other nasty stuff by the other side. I've been a target of false accusations by the Alphabet Mafia. I have been looked down on for being a straight white male. Oh, you've got privilege. Bitch, if you know what the fuck I have been through, you wouldn't be so quick to say that I have any kind of privilege whatsoever. Seriously, if the life I live is white privilege, y'all can fucking have it. I don't want it. Take it, please. I don't want it. Have at it. Trust me, you're gonna learn real quick why I didn't want it. But, back to that whole thing. Do I really identify as a nationalist either? Well, no. Do I identify as... Well, that's the trick. I don't really feel like I identify as a pure anything. If there's one thing that I feel like I absolutely identify as, with absolute certainty, no hesitation, no doubt, no reluctance whatsoever, I am an individualist. I do not think in terms of the collective. Now, this is where I feel the disconnect between the left and the right is coming from. The left views everything through collective ideals. Yeah, this is why things like communism is so big, socialism is so big, and whatnot. They're thinking like a hive mind. That's what it is. Now, is there anything inherently wrong with this? Well, no. I mean, for all my bluster, vitriol, and hatred towards the left for what they have accused me of being, there are a few fair points when it comes to thinking like a community. Alright. Sorry, got distracted. Music kicked in from the background there. I don't know if y'all can hear it or whatnot. Probably not, but that just was a thing. I had to kill that for a bit so I could hear it. Alrighty. So the left has this idea of thinking like a collective, thinking like a community, thinking, what is to the benefit of all. And when you take this to its most extreme, what is better for all to the detriment of the one? Like, this is, the greater good at its most extreme. The needs of the many that outweigh the needs of the few. And, of course, like anything that is to the extremes, That's not necessarily the best way to look at it. So, yeah. I know. I'm not doing the scripted. That's just the way things are with this particular series. It's all unscripted stuff. That's just straight up raw. And that's where I'm coming from. I think this is where the disconnect and the animosity is coming from. Because when the left looks at the right, because that's where the right and conservative and that's where our traditions as Americans necessarily stem from, is the idea of self-sufficiency and individualism. You know, what is the American dream? It's people coming out to live their lives as they see fit as individuals. And this conflicts heavily with the collective ideas that are done by the left, by the hive mind. The collectivists, and this is necessarily where I'm looking at it from, they don't and can't understand how an individualist thinks. They can't. They have to view the world through the entire veins as a collective. They always see things as we, never I. For whatever reason, I honestly couldn't fathom to you, because this is where why the collectivists seem just so foreign and weird to me, and I can't comprehend it because I think as an individual. I do not understand their motivations for thinking as a collective. I would rather think on an individual basis. Now, I can tell you why I think on the individual basis, and this might hold true for a lot of other individualists as well. When the chips were down, when life handed us lemons, we learned to make grape juice and then watch the world wonder how we did it. I have always wanted to use that line. Always. But that kind of gets to where we're coming from with this one. You know, one person might just make lemonade, another person might make lemonade a different way, maybe without the sugar. One person might just make lemon water and whatnot, and yeah, another person will just make grape juice and run with it. But getting back to that. The world is not necessarily fair, just, and all that fun jazz as much as we all wish it was. So, when life shat on the individualist and they looked outside for help, the world, the collective did not help them. So they kind of got it into their heads, fine, you want something done right? Yeah, do it yourself. And this is where they kind of cultivated that self-sufficient single-mindedness for the betterment of the self over everybody else. And yes, taken to its most logical extreme, this could be seen as extremely selfish, greedy, individualistic, stuff like that. But, and here's the thing, unlike the collective, the individual takes necessarily what they need and not much more. They have a far better understanding of what the individual needs. And I think this is where another failing of the collective necessarily comes into it. They want to, looking at it from good intentions. This is where I'm going to try and look. I'm going to try and be positive with this video. I'm going to try and look at this for good intentions, and I'm not going to assume any kind of hostility, because odds are I'm going to circle right back around to just how stupid this whole thing looked on the outside. So, from looking at it from the perspective of good intentions, the collective wants to ensure that everybody is taken care of, that everybody gets what they need, and we all live fair and balanced, happy lives. No suffering, no hatred, all that fun jazz. But therein lies the impracticality of it all. They want to make everybody's lives better. Well, how do you make everybody's lives better? Well, you gotta. Here's the kicker. What does each individual person need? The individualist can answer this because it's different for everybody. The collective can't. And that's an inherent problem there. They say they want to do all these things, end all these hatreds, and everybody will be all the better for it if we live as one big collective society. But they can't break it down at its base. Now, to be fair, we'll actually look at this also on the individualist side as well. There are some failings to being an individualist as well. Because what happens when you do legitimately need help? You have done everything possible to solve the problem yourself, and you're still coming up short. Now, I know it's kind of a hard pill to swallow because we individualists take pride in not relying on anybody else because that's how we've had to do things. I think that's actually it. It's the thing. Individualists do not know how to work at. Okay, there we go. Found my train of track. Individualists do not know how to work together to push a cause like the collectivists do. Can they see their individual needs? Hell yes. But when you put a bunch of individualists into a room together, give them a group project to solve, and say, have at it, it's going to break down, and everybody thinks they know what's best and how to go about it. Very rarely you're going to get a bunch of individualists together who can really work together like that. Is it possible? Yes. But by their nature, everybody thinks that they know how to best complete something like that one. So they're going to be kind of working at odds until they kind of, figure things out the hard way. Collectivists don't have that problem. They can easily flow in, about, and around each other with no issues whatsoever. So that's where I'm thinking this whole discourse is, because when I see the left, when I see the collectivists, when I see them shouting down at basically belittling and demonizing the individual, I can't understand why. Now, this is me trying to puzzle things out further. The only thing I can think of is that because to them the individual is an anomaly. It goes back to humanity's earliest roots, where there was safety in numbers. There is, if you didn't want to die, you had to be part of the in-group, and to be exiled out of that in-group was a fate worse than death. So there's that. Times are different now. Now, we have all these neat advancements and everything else. We know more about everything. We know more about the world, and it's not as much of a death sentence anymore. So the collectivists exclude the individuals from the group, because that's just how the mind works. And because of that, we are alien. We are a completely foreign concept to them. They cannot understand us. And to the individuals, it's difficult for us to fathom why. Why is, the collective so important that, they demonize us for being different. We're ostracized and cast out of the collective because we're different, and that's why somebody would usually toss somebody out of the in-group in the first place. So there's that. Going back to the video, and this kind of, gets back into the whole thing. And the video was basically begging me to try to listen to the other side, stop being so close-minded, and, accept differences. And for, like, the first 6-7 minutes of that, I'm like, okay, maybe this video's got a point. Maybe I should try again. And then he started addressing the complaints that the collective has with the individualists, in this case, what the liberals have with the conservatives. And Jesus Christ. This is where my brain shut down. This usually happens whenever I run into, liberal talking points, is because they address everything is for the good and betterment of all. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, that's great. How is it going to be a benefit to me? Because what's good for somebody else is not going to be, good for me. And this is something Pinoid actually talked about in one of his other videos, about how the U.S. basically needs to break up in this whole thing. And he's kind of big on being the whole Appalachian wilderness guerrilla type deal. And this is, this even goes back further as well. Most of the policymakers, big policies, and other things that the United States is currently under right now are being passed strictly by people who come from the metropolises and big cities. Very few of these policies positively impact the rural areas by any meaningful stretch. And here's the thing. The urban areas in the U.S., compared to the rural areas in the U.S. as well, are very tiny. But they comprise a good chunk of the population. Like, if you take, like, the top 10 biggest cities in the United States, the population would probably be the equivalent of, 3, 4, 5 Midwestern states, probably. And this is where the disassociation. I think this is kind of why we're having these problems. And I'm pretty sure some people are looking at me and going, well, thank you, Captain Obvious, for pointing out the obvious. That the policies that are being set forth strictly cater to urban metropolises and do not account for rural Midwestern stuff. There's a reason why the coastal elites are called the coastal elites, and they refer to Central America as flyover territory, because they're generally hopping from coast to coast, because that's where all the big business mega complexes and whatnot else have you are. And nobody really thinks much of what goes on in, in the rural places. They have their own problems, issues, and other things going on that they got to tackle. And these are problems that are inherently unique to rural areas that urban areas don't understand. And vice versa. There are problems that are in the urban areas only that rurals do not understand. It's the age-old city folk, country folk argument. Big old city slickers coming out into the wilderness, realizing things are slow, and it's like, dude, chill. I know you just got back from the big city and all. Just take it slow down. Ain't gotta be a rush to be everywhere in 5 minutes the way you all thought to be. Well, there goes my own Midwestern heritage slipping out. And when rurals get to the big city for the first time, they're just kind of taken aback at how everything is. Rush, 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 rush. Gotta get here, gotta get there, gotta do the things, do all the things. Time is money. Chop, 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 chop. I think the biggest problem I had with this video, especially towards the latter half when it was addressing conservatives, was that the individual who was doing so was still addressing us as a collective mindset. He's like, conservatives, why do you have problems with the LGBT community? They're the you're so pro-life and every child is precious and pro-adoption, but why don't you support LGBT, which are the biggest proponents of adoption? Because that's literally the only way they can have a family. It's like, why aren't you accepting and trusting of Islam and Muslims? They're so traditional, so conservative. You would get along very well with each other. Why do you hate the blacks? Blacks are like the biggest churchgoers, and you're this whole forefront of culture and church thing. And this is where I see the problem with collectivist thinking. It's like, why do you not accept these groups as a whole? It's like he's trying to address conservatives as a whole, thinking that he can appeal to all of us the same way that he can appeal to the collectivist liberals. Why you as a whole? Why can you not accept this other group as a whole? And I'm going to be straight up honest. The points he brought up were complete and utter bullshit. I'm not going to get into it because that's probably the topic for another video as far as that's concerned. But I think this is also where I'm just getting personally upset. He's trying to make these case points that I should accept these communities that are quote unquote traditionally reviled by conservatives. Because they're supposedly the champions of values that I hold dear. This is wrong on two accounts. First and foremost, the reason why I disagree with his points is because of things I have personally experienced. He's coming at this from the viewpoint of a collective and trying to appeal to me as if I am a collective. I am not a collective. I am an individual. And I have my personal individual reasons. And I think that's the problem of why the collectivists can't seem to get through to me. Is because they're still trying to look at the whole thing through the lens of the collective, and they're trying to appeal to me as if I am a part of this other collective that they can understand. I'm not. He thinks that I revile LGBTQ just because I am, I have conservative leanings. I don't. I don't. I despise the collective mindset, hive mind entity that whole movement has spawned. That has produced some individuals, and I have run into those individuals that are just absolutely fucking atrocious and disgust me personally on so many other levels. But there are also homosexuals that I have no beef with. When it comes to the collectivist entity that makes up the LGBTQ movement, I have a problem with that movement. I have a problem with certain individuals. But on the flip side, homosexuals as a whole, and especially certain individuals that I personally know, I don't have a problem with these people. I'm an individualist. I categorize everything individually. Everyone is an individual to me. When I meet somebody on an individual basis, I treat them as they are an individual. I assume nothing of them until I've had a chance to get to know them personally. But when it comes to the whole collective thing, the collective mindset, the way the collective has treated me, I treat that kind of as its own separate entity. And, I think that's kind of it's weird because while I see it as a singular entity, I'm also playing by the collectivist rules there in that mindset, that everybody who is a part of that group basically gets lumped in as a single consciousness, as a single entity, and I treat them that way in according to that. Islam, I don't, as a religion, I don't trust it. It's inherently dishonest, and that's probably a topic for another video, and that's generally why I would say that I'm cautious around Muslims. Not outright hate. I reserve that explicitly for the ones that are out there in the Middle East, outright calling for my head and whatnot. But when it comes to the local domestic populations, I am cautious around them. Why? Because it is an inherently dishonest religion that codifies lying into their religious code. And it's the problem of a pathological liar. If they admit that they're lying, then how can you trust what they're lying? Because if it's true that they're lying, then then it means you shouldn't trust anything they say. But if that into and of itself is a lie, then what is the real truth? And this is the problem I have with Islam. The issue with blacks. Alright, yeah, to use the old tired cliche, not all blacks. Okay. Same issue with the LGBT movement. The whole Black Lives Matter movement is an inherent abomination. It is domestic terrorism, and I have problems with it on so many other levels, as well as the individuals in there actively demonizing me for being white, calling for my head, and wanting to burn, kill, rape, loot, murder, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But when it comes to me meeting with black individuals, I have no problem with them on an individual level. There are some I don't like, there are some I do like, there are some that I hate, and there are some that I treat as my family. That's where this video, gets everything wrong. And I just thinking that I should accept Black Lives Matter and the whole movement there, just because black people are, heavy churchgoers, to use Van Jones' own words. I'm probably sitting somewhere out there. There is a black person listening to this video right now. Their eyes go wide, and they're going to burst into laughter saying, yeah, I ain't no churchgoer. It's like, I found Jesus, but I ain't set foot in his house for a while. And this kind of goes to show the disconnect where that movement necessarily has. They think they represent all. They don't. Because the ones that think for themselves are individualists, and they have a problem with this as well. And I think this is something that other individualists like... See, that's the thing with individualism, is that it doesn't account for color, creed, race, sex, or orientation. We're all united in one thing, and that's everybody, is different and has their own opinions. Oh, which is the big irony there? The big irony. The collectivists are united in a single thought, and they want diversity. Well, you're not going to find anyone more diverse than a bunch of individualists. I'm reminded of Mass Effect 2, and the line that Samara once gave it to us. She found humans interesting. If you put 3 humans in a room, you get 6 opinions. And you're sitting there wondering yourself, well, how the fuck is that even possible? But it makes sense when you think about it on, when you think of the 3 humans as individualists. They're not going to agree with each other on everything. They're each going to have their own opinions, and then they're going to form opinions on everybody else's opinion. It equates more like... all right, math is not my strong suit here, so... what is it? Is it 3 to the power of 3 or 3 to the power of 9? I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, it's not my strong suit. Well, we got one person who's got one opinion there, and the other 2 have an opinion on that, so that's 3 opinions right there. And, yeah, I think that's more like 9 opinions. 3 to the power of 3, something like that. Had to puzzle that out. Anyway, I digress. I think that's where the real issue and all this animosity is coming from. It doesn't stem from, holding different values, because, I mean, there are some things I agree with conservatives on, and there are some things that I agree, with the liberal side on. Surprise, surprise, there are a few things that I actually agree on the whole collective side of things. And that might be another future topic video thing. But that's me being an individual, which the collective cannot comprehend. If you're not with them, you're against them. Whereas when it comes to an individual, if you're not with them, you're not against them, you're just not with them. And that allows for discourse to actually be held. And then you might get the whole thing where maybe you can flip somebody's mind as far as that's concerned. But until the collective can understand that, they're always going to be spouting off the whole same nonsense, and it's going to make my brain shut down. I can't process it. Because when you address me like I am a part of a collective, your reasoning is just so backwards stupid in the way that you phrase things that my brain literally shuts down and tunes you out in terms of self-preservation. But at the same vein, I understand that you have difficulty expressing yourself as an individual to an individual. it's harder because it means that you kind of have to pick them off one at a time, piecemeal as far as that's concerned. It's slow gains. And that's part of what the collective... It kind of goes into another whole problem with society, is that the younger crowd wants everything now. Trying to... They want to get in there, they want to swoop up all the individualists and bring them into their way of thinking, and then everybody will be all hunky-dory and doesn't work like that. Does not work like that. You have to go through and convince every single individual by individual, that what you're doing is the best way. And, of course, that's not going to work, because you're always going to have that one individual out there that says, that is vehemently and stubbornly against you. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, there is no changing their mind. Now, you can either accept this, or you can do what you have been doing for the last several years, and that's basically demonizing them, trying to basically oust them from society, get them canceled, ruin their lives, yada, 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 and hopefully enact some kind of punitive measures that you think will bring them around to your line of reasoning. Pro tip, that doesn't work. It never works. All stick, no carrot never works. And the reason why it's even going to still fail in the long run is because that person is an individual. They take pride in being self-sufficient. You want to kick them out of your system? They're just going to laugh hysterically and go back to what they've been doing, which is their own thing. They don't need you. They don't rely on the system the same as you do. So in truth, it doesn't impact them when you try to socially ostracize them as a punitive measure to punish them. It's not going to work. So that's where I'm coming from. This one is that the Great Divide here has nothing to do with values. And I keep going back to this video, and I'm just sitting here. He had me in the first half, and I was nodding along, agreeing with him. And then he just continued to go, and then he opened his mouth and shoved his foot so far down there, I swear it's coming out his ass. Why do they do it? If it had just been the first 7 minutes, maybe I could have considered myself, willing to be more open-minded. More open-minded than even I am now, because, again, I'm an individual. I'm willing to approach things individually, listen to you individually, talk to you like an individual, but even no matter what you say, I'm still not going to agree with the collective as a whole. But maybe you might be able to get me to consider things from your viewpoint, and maybe make me less hostile. But talk long enough, you shove your foot in your mouth, and nope, that's all she wrote. I'm not interested in any more what you have to say. So, yeah. If I wanted to correct anything on this one video, I would say don't approach conservatives as if they are a collective. That's not going to work. You have to approach them as they are individuals. And maybe I need to understand more why people think collectively. It's difficult for me to think collectively when I have just... I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. I will make no claims to being some street-hardened thug gangster motherfucker. But I have definitely taken a beating in life, and I've got the battle scars to prove it. And I'm still here, I'm still standing. Or, maybe I'm just screaming into the void on this whole thing, and you're just going to ignore me entirely.